While walking home, a neighbor shouted, "Your girlfriend's inside, with someone else." I looked up, curtains open. I'll never forget that night because everything unraveled in seconds. It was a Wednesday, one of those long days where your body feels like it's just carrying itself forward out of habit. I'd worked a late shift at the hardware store, stayed behind to help with inventory, and picked up some groceries on the way home. The bag was cutting into my fingers, and all I could think about was getting inside, tossing everything on the counter, and finally sinking into the couch with Carly. I turned the corner onto our street, and that's when it happened. "Hey, Daniel," a voice rang out sharp and loud, cutting across the quiet block. "Your girlfriend's inside, with someone else." It was Mr. Hensley, my neighbor from across the street. Everyone knew him. Retired cop, mid-60s, built like a bulldog. He had no filter and didn't care who knew it. He was the type who'd shout at kids for skateboarding on the sidewalk or bang on your door if he thought your music was 2 notches too high. People rolled their eyes at him, but deep down, we all knew he was never wrong. At first I thought he was joking. He had this gruff sense of humor that always towed the line between serious and absurd. But then I saw his face. He wasn't laughing. He was pointing. "Look up," he barked. And I did. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor, the one with the big bay window Carly always insisted we keep uncovered because she liked the natural light. The curtains were wide open. The glow of the floor lamp spilled across the room. And there, plain as day, I saw 2 figures on the couch. One was Carly. The other was a man I didn't recognize. At first my brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe a friend had stopped by. Maybe they were watching something on her laptop. But then the scene sharpened in front of me like a cruel photograph. Carly's shirt was off, tossed onto the armrest. The guy's hand slid across her bare back. His head tilted toward hers, and then his mouth was on her neck. The grocery bag slipped from my hand. A box of pasta hit the pavement and split open, the dry noodles scattering like brittle sticks across the sidewalk. I didn't move. I just stared. My stomach felt hollow, like someone had scooped me out from the inside. My chest tightened. I could hear blood pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else, until Mr. Hensley's voice cut through again. "You gonna stand there all night?" he growled. That snapped me out of it. I blinked, forced air into my lungs, and looked down at the mess on the ground. Then I looked back up. Carly laughed at something he said, the kind of laugh she used to save for me. Without thinking, I marched toward the building. My body was moving before my mind could catch up. Every step up the staircase felt heavier, louder, like the whole building must have heard me coming. By the time I reached the door, my hands were shaking. I shoved the key into the lock, twisted hard, and pushed it open. The sound that hit me first wasn't what I expected. Not guilt, not panic, laughter. Carly and the guy were tangled on the couch, a bottle of wine open on the table, 2 glasses half empty. They froze when I stepped in, but it wasn't immediate horror on Carly's face. It was annoyance. "What the hell, Daniel?" she snapped, pulling a blanket across her chest like I was the one intruding. "You can't just barge in like that." Barge in? Into my own apartment. The guy didn't even bother to stand up right away. He leaned back, smirk tugging at his mouth, like he was daring me to swing. He had sharp features, well-styled hair, and a smugness that radiated off him like cologne. I looked at Carly. "Who is he?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't do this right now. You're making it weird." "Weird?" My voice cracked halfway between disbelief and fury. "I come home and find you with some stranger, and I'm making it weird?" The guy finally stood, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. He was taller than me by a couple inches, built like he spent every spare moment in the gym. "Maybe you should take a walk, man," he said casually. "Cool off." That tone, that nonchalant arrogance. My hands curled into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. For a second, I wanted to hit him. Everything in me screamed for it. But some part of me, maybe my father's voice, maybe the ghost of my better judgment, held me back. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. Carly stood then, clutching the blanket tighter. "Daniel, you're overreacting. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like." The oldest line in the book, delivered while half-dressed with wine glasses on the table and another man standing beside her. I laughed. It came out broken, sharp, but I couldn't stop it. "You're unbelievable." The guy shrugged, unfazed. "Like I said, maybe step outside." I turned to him. "You don't live here. You don't tell me what to do in my own apartment." That got under his skin, just a little. His smirk faltered. Carly jumped in fast, as if to stop things from exploding. "Both of you, just enough," she shouted. The noise carried. I could hear a door open down the hall. A neighbor peeking out. More footsteps overhead. This wasn't a private fight anymore. The building was listening. Something inside me clicked then. I realized they had already lost. They didn't know it yet, but the damage was done. Neighbors had seen the man come in. Now they'd heard the shouting. Even if Carly spun it, even if she begged and lied and tried to patch it up, The truth was out in the open. I looked around the apartment one last time. The blanket, the empty glasses, the tossed-aside clothes. My life with Carly, shattered in a single evening. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just walked over to the grocery bag, picked it up off the floor, and stepped back into the hall. Carly called my name once, half pleading, half angry, but I didn't look back. As I closed the door behind me, I heard the guy mutter something smug. Carly's voice rose sharp in response, already turning on him. The cracks were showing. When I stepped outside into the night air, Mr. Hensley was still leaning on his railing across the street, arms crossed. He gave me a slow nod, like he'd seen this 1,000 times before. "Told you," he said. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. The bag was heavy in my hand again, but I didn't feel it. My head was buzzing, replaying the scene over and over, the betrayal stamped into my brain like a brand. That was the moment I knew. Carly wasn't just unfaithful. She was reckless enough to let the world see it, arrogant enough to think I'd swallow it, and cruel enough to make me the villain in my own home. And if she thought that was the end of it, she was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the mattress staring at the ceiling, hearing every sound in the apartment around me. Carly had come into the bedroom hours later, acting like nothing happened. She climbed under the blanket, her back to me, and within minutes her breathing evened out. I stayed awake, fists clenched at my sides, the image of her and that man replaying endlessly in my head. In the morning, she behaved like it had been a minor argument. She walked into the kitchen, hair tied back, poured herself coffee, and asked if I wanted eggs. I just stared at her, waiting for her to admit something, anything. She avoided my eyes. When she finally spoke about it, her tone was cold, calculated. "You're blowing this out of proportion. He's just a friend. You're making yourself look jealous." That was her defense. Not remorse. Not an apology. Just an attack, flipping it on me. It was surreal. I left without eating, and when I came back that evening, she was gone. A note on the counter said she was staying at her sister's for a couple days to cool off. I should have been relieved. Instead, it made me angrier. She wasn't cooling off. She was hiding, buying herself time to twist the story. I was right. Within days, I started hearing whispers. Friends calling to ask if I was okay, but their questions were framed strangely. "We heard you lost it," one said. Someone said you got aggressive. Another asked if I was still struggling with trust issues. It hit me like a second betrayal. Carly was painting me as unstable, a paranoid boyfriend who had imagined something that wasn't there. The neighbors had heard shouting, but they hadn't seen enough to be sure. And Carly was quick with her story. Daniel came home exhausted, saw me with a friend, and jumped to wild conclusions. "He's insecure. He embarrassed himself." She didn't just cheat. She was making me into the villain. I decided not to fight it. Not yet. I stayed silent. When friends probed, I gave short answers. When Carly texted, I didn't reply. I didn't even correct her lies. Let her think she was winning. Let her feel safe enough to show her arrogance to everyone else. Then came the birthday invitation. Carly's 27th. She sent out a group message, cheerful and sweet, inviting everyone to a party at a friend's house. "Come celebrate," she wrote, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't been exposed on the couch with another man less than 2 weeks earlier. At first, I thought about skipping it. Why put myself in the same room as her? Why give her another chance to spin the story in front of everyone? But then I noticed something. In the list of names she tagged, Greg's was there. The same man. She had invited him. That's when my anger turned cold. I RSVP'd yes. The night of the party, I walked in with a six-pack under my arm, smiling politely at people as if I had no idea what had happened. Carly was radiant in a red dress, the kind she used to save for nights out with me. She kissed my cheek in front of everyone, like we were still together. I didn't kiss back, but she didn't care. She was putting on a show. "Daniel," she said loudly enough for people around us to hear. "I'm so glad you came. I knew we'd be fine." Fine. Like betrayal was just a hiccup. For the first hour, I played along. I chatted with friends, laughed at jokes, kept my drink in hand, but stayed sharp. Carly floated around the room, basking in the attention, leaning close to Greg more than once. A few people noticed, but she laughed it off each time. I could feel the tension building like static before a storm. Then came the moment. Carly stood in the center of the living room, wine glass raised. "Everyone, thank you so much for coming," she said, smiling wide. "This year has been amazing, and I'm so grateful to be surrounded by such wonderful friends." There was polite applause. She looked around the room, glowing under the attention. And that's when I stepped forward. "Yeah," I said, my voice calm but carrying across the chatter. "Wonderful friends. Like Greg, right?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me, then to Greg, who was leaning against the wall with his usual smug half-smile. Carly froze, her smile faltering. "What are you doing?" she whispered, but the hush in the room made it louder than she intended. I set my drink down on the table and looked directly at her. 2 weeks ago, I came home and found you half naked on the couch with him. Curtains wide open. Mr. Hensley across the street saw it too. Do you really want to pretend it didn't happen? Gasps. A couple people turned their heads toward Greg, who tried to laugh it off. Man, you're crazy. That's not what happened. But the way he said it lacked conviction. He shifted his weight uncomfortably. Sophie, Greg's fiancée, had been standing near the kitchen. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She stared at him, her face pale, lips trembling. Greg, she whispered. Now the room was buzzing. People whispering, exchanging glances, staring at Carly like they'd never seen her before. Carly tried to regain control, her voice rising in desperation. He's lying. Daniel's just jealous. He's twisting everything. But it was too late. Sophie shoved past her, storming out the front door with tears streaming down her face. Someone else muttered, I knew it, under their breath. The whispers spread like wildfire. I didn't shout. I didn't rant. I just looked at Carly one last time, her face pale and trembling, then turned and walked out. Behind me, I heard voices rising, accusations flying, Greg trying to defend himself, Carly snapping back. The party had collapsed into chaos. By the time I stepped outside into the cool night air, the damage was done. The perfect image Carly had tried so hard to maintain was shattered. Her lies couldn't cover it anymore. People had seen her mask fall off in real time. I didn't even need to say another word. That night marked a turning point. Up until then, Carly still had control of the narrative. She'd been able to twist things, paint herself as the victim, make me out to be insecure. But after the birthday party, everything shifted. Her friends had seen the truth. Sophie had seen the truth. And Greg, for all his smugness, had crumbled when the spotlight turned on him. I went home, sat on the edge of my bed, and felt the first wave of calm I'd had in weeks. Not because I was over it, but because I knew the tide had turned. Carly wasn't just a cheater anymore. She was a liar exposed in front of everyone she cared about. And I wasn't the only one she'd betrayed. That was only the beginning. The birthday party detonated like a grenade, but the shrapnel didn't stop flying when I walked out the door. For the first 24 hours, my phone buzzed nonstop. Some messages were sympathetic. Man, I had no idea. Good on you for saying something. Others were cautious, testing the waters, trying to figure out whose side to take. And then there were the messages that carried Carly's fingerprints. Friends repeating her lines almost word for word. Maybe you misunderstood. It looked worse than it was. She says you've been stressed. Carly wasn't just licking her wounds. She was going on the offensive. 3 days after the party, she showed up at my workplace. I work at a mid-sized hardware store, not glamorous, but steady. She timed it perfectly, midday on a Saturday when customers were lined up at the registers. She walked in wearing that same red dress, mascara perfectly done, eyes wide like she was ready for an Oscar performance. Daniel, she called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Can we talk? Please. Heads turned. I froze. She marched right up to me at the counter and grabbed my arm, her voice shaking, but just enough to sound dramatic, not genuine. You can't keep ignoring me, she said. I know you're angry, but making me look like a cheater in front of everyone? Do you realize how humiliating that was for me? I laughed, a short, bitter sound that slipped out before I could stop it. You humiliated yourself. That was the moment she pivoted, right there in front of everyone. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice cracked just enough to sound fragile. This is what you do, she said, louder now, glancing at the customers as if they were her jury. You twist everything, you control everything. You make me feel like I'm losing my mind. You scared me that night. The words hung heavy in the air. Customers stared. My manager, Frank, came over, frowning. Carly seized the moment. He's not who you think he is, she told Frank. He has a temper. He gets paranoid. Enough, Frank cut her off. That stunned her. Frank wasn't just my boss. He'd known me for years. He'd been to cookouts at my parents' place, met Carly enough times to notice the way she constantly shifted stories to suit herself. And most importantly, Frank lived in the same building as us. He'd heard the shouting the night it happened. He knew I hadn't imagined it. Carly, Frank said flatly, this isn't the place for your drama. Take it outside. Her face crumbled. She looked around, realizing the crowd wasn't with her. Some were whispering, shaking their heads. The act had cracked. She stormed out, slamming the glass door so hard it rattled. That was her mistake. She thought she could smear me in public, but instead, she exposed herself as manipulative in front of a room full of people who weren't buying it. Still, I knew better than to relax. Carly was reckless, and reckless people double down when cornered. I was right. 2 nights later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Sophie. We hadn't spoken since the party, but her words were sharp and precise. We need to talk. I think you should see what I found. We met at a cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place that stayed open late but was always half empty. Sophie looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her engagement ring was gone, leaving a pale mark on her finger. She slid her phone across the table to me without a word. It was open to a thread of messages. Carly and Greg. The texts weren't just flirtatious. They were conspiratorial. Carly. He thinks I'm saving for our place, but I'm really using his account. By the time he figures it out, I'll be gone. Greg. Good. He's boring anyway. Just keep him on the hook until we're set. Carly. Don't worry. He believes everything. I scrolled through dozens more, my stomach twisting tighter with every line. Sophie leaned forward, voice low. He used my money too. Wedding savings. He spent it on her. Hotels, gifts, dinners. I checked the receipts. They planned to bleed us both dry. The betrayal was deeper than I'd thought. It wasn't just infidelity. It was strategy. Carly had turned our relationship into a scam, milking me for security while Greg kept Sophie around as a financial cushion. We were pawns in their little game. What are you going to do with this? I asked. Sophie's jaw tightened. What are we going to do with it? That was the turning point. I wasn't alone anymore. Carly and Greg had burned both of us, and now Sophie and I had something they didn't. The truth, written in their own words. We spent the next hour mapping it out. Sophie had connections in town. Her father sat on the board of Greg's company. I knew Carly's weaknesses, her obsession with reputation, the social circles she clung to for validation. We didn't need revenge to feel good. We needed it to be loud, undeniable, and permanent. The first strike came online. Sophie posted screenshots of the messages in a private group chat Carly frequently used to brag about her perfect relationship. She didn't add commentary, didn't editorialize. She just dropped the screenshots, let them speak for themselves, and logged off. Within an hour, Carly was blowing up my phone. How could you do this? Delete it now. You're ruining me. But I hadn't posted it. Sophie had. Carly didn't even realize she was under attack from two sides. The second strike hit Greg. Sophie's father pulled strings quietly, and within a week, Greg was asked to resign from his job. Officially, it was for personal reasons. Unofficially, everyone knew. You don't get caught using company accounts to wine and dine your mistress without consequences. The third strike was unplanned, but it was the one that sealed everything. Carly showed up at another friend's house party, trying to salvage her social life. I wasn't there, but people told me later how it went down. She walked in, head high, trying to act like the victim of a smear campaign. She started her speech. Daniel's been lying about me. You all know I'd never. When someone cut her off, a girl pulled up Sophie's post on her phone, held it out, and said, "Then explain this." Silence. Carly stammered, tried to claim the screenshots were fake, but no one believed her. Not after the birthday party, not after the stunt at my job, not after weeks of whispers and contradictions. She left in tears, her once loyal circle now turned cold. By the end of the month, Carly was radioactive. Greg was unemployed and dumped. Sophie was free of him, and I walked through town with people nodding at me like I'd been vindicated. But Carly wasn't finished yet. One night, well past midnight, I heard a knock on my door. Slow, deliberate. I looked through the peephole and saw her. Carly, makeup streaked, hair messy, eyes wide and wild. When I opened the door, she started crying immediately. "Daniel, please. I made a mistake. He doesn't want me anymore. Everyone hates me. I need you. I love you." The desperation in her voice would have broken me once. But not anymore. I didn't say a word. I didn't argue, didn't give her the fight she wanted. I just closed the door. Her sobs echoed down the hall as she eventually stumbled away. For the first time, I felt a sense of peace. Not joy, this wasn't joyful, but clarity. Carly had tried to destroy me, and instead, she'd destroyed herself. And Sophie wasn't done yet. She had one last move planned, and it was going to make Carly's world collapse completely. When I shut the door on Carly that night, I thought it was over. I figured she'd slink away, maybe crash at her sister's, and try to rebuild her life from the rubble she'd made. But the thing about people like Carly is they never believe the party's really over. They always think they can claw their way back, that someone will bail them out, that one more performance will save them. I underestimated just how far she'd sink before reality hit. A week after the midnight visit, I ran into Sophie again. She slid into the booth across from me at a quiet diner, her expression grim but steady. "She's been calling me," Sophie said. "Carly, begging. First for money, then for a place to stay." When I blocked her, she started leaving voicemails. I raised an eyebrow. "Why would she think you'd help her?" Sophie smirked. "Because she doesn't realize how much she disgusts me. But I've been saving the voicemails. You should hear them." She pressed play on her phone. Carly's voice spilled out, shaky and erratic. "Sophie, you don't get it. Greg, he left me with nothing. I gave him everything. And now he won't even answer my calls. Daniel won't take me back. Everyone hates me. I can't even show my face at work. Please, you have to help me. I'm not the villain here. Another one. Fine, maybe I screwed up. But we both got burned, right? Greg played us both. Doesn't that mean we're the same? Please, Sophie, don't let me end up on the street. Sophie stopped the recording and locked eyes with me. She still thinks this is salvageable, that she can spin it. And that's why I'm not done yet. I leaned back, studying her. What do you have in mind? Sophie told me her plan, and I'll admit, it was ruthless. But after what Carly and Greg had done, it was hard to argue. The opportunity came faster than expected. Greg had been trying to crawl back into Sophie's good graces, not because he cared about her, but because her family's influence had been his ticket to status. He showed up at her father's business dinner, uninvited, and tried to make a case for himself. He didn't get far. Sophie's father had him escorted out. But the gossip spread fast. Greg was desperate. Greg was finished. Carly heard about it too. And in her desperation, she showed up at the same dinner, uninvited, overdressed, clearly intoxicated. Sophie caught it on camera. Carly stumbling up to Greg in the parking lot, screaming at him for abandoning her, clawing at his jacket while he shoved her off. A security guard pulled them apart, and Carly collapsed against the curb, wailing. Sophie didn't just keep the footage. She shared it. With everyone. Within hours, it was circulating in the same friend groups Carly once ruled. The pristine, put-together image she'd curated for years was obliterated in 30 seconds of messy video. No more pretending she was the wrong girlfriend. No more spinning the story. The whole town saw her as what she really was. Desperate, manipulative, and discarded. Greg didn't escape unscathed either. The video made him look weak, petty, and abusive. His reputation tanked further. He left town within weeks, probably chasing some new opportunity where his name wasn't already dirt. Carly, though, she didn't have an escape hatch. She lost her apartment when she couldn't keep up with rent. Her sister let her crash for a while, but kicked her out after one too many drunken nights. With no job, no friends, and no family willing to put up with her chaos, she ended up working part-time at a discount clothing store on the edge of town. I heard it from a neighbor who'd seen her behind the register, pale, tired, with that same brittle smile she used to weaponize. And me? I moved out of the old building, packed my things, signed a lease on a new place, and cut ties with that chapter of my life. I ran into Mr. Hensley one last time while I was hauling boxes into the moving truck. He leaned against his railing, arms crossed, watching me with that knowing stare. "Didn't I tell you?" he said. "You did," I admitted. He grunted. "You handled it better than most would've. Don't let her kind drag you down again." I nodded, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. But the real closure came a month later. I was walking downtown when I spotted her. Carly, standing outside the store in her faded uniform, cigarette in hand, staring blankly at the traffic. She didn't see me, but I saw her, and for a moment, I felt nothing. No rage, no sadness, no satisfaction. Just nothing. That's when I knew I was finally free. She had tried to ruin me, to make me the fool, the villain, the paranoid boyfriend. But in the end, she ruined herself. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger.